Hi there, I'm Lux, and this is Cheese. Let's build a spaceship. Turn on the future. So, this is Future Proof Workshop out in Washington State. It's in a state of minor disarray, but not bad enough to get in the way of working on our next big project. My next big project, anyway, is to build a spaceship. Right there. All that wood is, you see that? Yeah, that's going to be an RV-sized spaceship. It's going to take up about half the room, and we'll be shooting a significant amount of Dynamo Season 2 in it when it's finished. So I want to talk about the concept art a little bit. The ship is a mix of an aircraft, submarine, and an RV home. So I'm going to be building in screen functioning systems for a lot of this stuff. We'll have a little kitchenette, which is going to have a working espresso machine and range and water, at least working well enough for the purposes of on-screen demonstration. Bathroom pod, stairway, engine bay, main area, cargo storage, ladder leads up to the cockpit, hallway that runs through here, front bay, hatch that opens up onto the green screen stage, lounge area. But long story short, our pilot has made a home of this spaceship over the course of the last few years, and will be following around in this space as we kick around the universe for a bit. Well, I made the classic mistake. I started picking stuff up and I forgot to stretch. Good news is, it's not that bad yet. So, ground tastes bad. I sure am excited to refinish it. Not until the spaceship is done, though. Alright, here we go. So as I go, when I'm getting started on these first pieces, I actually built the entire frame shape for the ship with my measurements and all, using just standard lumber format pieces, basically. So I know what my frame is going to be like. I know where in the room it attaches, how big everything's going to be. I'm actually just coming back and referencing this file every so often. I'll do one piece at a time, get the ones I need, go outside to cut them, and then, assemble them and raise the frame once I've got enough walls to do so. While this build is happening on screen, instead of just having you listen to the grating and harsh sounds of the power tools, I'd like to take a moment to talk a little about my background and experience here, starting with a huge thank you to my wonderful friend Ian Hubert. I started working with Ian about half my life ago, when we were both still just barely teenagers, and he's been kind enough to involve me on what I believe is the vast majority of his personal projects ever since. Science fiction has long been a favorite aesthetic and storytelling focus of mine across all sorts of media, and so investing as much as possible of my time into Dynamo and other projects with Ian has been an amazing creative outlet and passion for me. Until a handful of years ago, I very primarily contributed to the show as a visual effects artist, since that has also been my professional focus outside of Dynamo for the last dozen plus years, with the occasional real-world build here or there throughout. But around 2019, I started to get a lot more invested in practical fabrication, something I've loved since I was a very young child. And eventually I moved over almost exclusively to the creation of specialty props, costumes, and set pieces, while Ian took over the extreme majority of the visual effects work. Occasionally I'll do what I'm gonna call Ouroboros projects, where I create a digital model that is then physically fabricated, and then I also do a visual effects layer on top of that physical prop, but usually my days now are fully practical work all the way down. This shift provides an amazing and relatively new opportunity for us as an extremely tiny independent studio. Now, if you're here, I suspect there's a good chance you've seen some of Ian's phenomenal visual effects work, including highly detailed spaceship environments that were originally shot almost entirely on a mostly empty green screen stage. This is, of course, wildly impressive, but in some cases an episode can take multiple years to complete after shooting is finished, thanks to how much visual effects work it entails. With Ian mostly doing it by himself, that's a huge task. And, of course, although splitting up the visual effects work theoretically helps some, it's often not ultimately actually that efficient for us having to deal with the back and forth. Plus, Ian is frankly blazing fast at what he does, and it's just a process that takes a ton of time regardless. However, shooting on location or on sets, and then using visual effects as a supplementary tool, as a great way to create hero shots and wides of the world, and as a way to create the things that we just can't reasonably hope to fabricate practically, means that a scene can go from filming to locked visuals way faster. So, once this build is finished, we'll be able to shoot a ton of our Season 2 storyline in such a way that extremely little visual effects supplementation will be required, comparatively speaking. So all the scenes that take place exclusively in the interior of this ship, perhaps ultimately even an hour, maybe, or more of screen time spread across several episodes, will work just like that. We'll get everyone into costume, we put them in the ship, we film, edit, and then we can quickly get through minor visual effects work, send it off to music and sound, and have a finished scene. This means, in theory, the ability to finish and release episodes faster than we have historically. Or maybe they'll be just as slow, but also they'll be way cooler. Who's to say? Okay, let's see what's happening with the ship now. To be perfectly honest, I'm not really sure how granular of detail to show my process in, but I do know that sparks are really cool. I think I am more or less legally required to film this part specifically. Oh man, any day I get to use the angle grinder is a good day. Oh, that's not good. I have to swap that out. Wait a minute. Okay, yeah. Sometimes I know how to use my own tools, but, you know. Righty, tighty. Some of them are reversed. Oh, wow. Oh, man. Am I really strong? I'm so strong. Nobody's gonna claim that wearing protective equipment is fun, but you only get one eye. Well, two eyes. So after you lose the first one, start wearing protective equipment. No, please protect all of them. I wonder if they make impact-proof monocles. And then I almost put gloves on, but you're actually not supposed to wear gloves with an angle grinder, because, well, I'm sure we could Google it and the answer would be horrifying. This is boring. Let's do the fun part. I think this level of sparks might actually be kind of a danger, but on the bright side, I've got my fire extinguisher right over here, just in case, for anything that's on fire. And for anything that's not on fire, I've also got this torch. What's that? You want to know the names of my other hammers? Okay, well, so we've got Wamanda, obviously. Bonk Kevin. My little cat's paw is called Catalina. My Jimmy bar is very cleverly named. We've got Slamantha and Jamalit. Got all the structural framing figured out, and I'm starting to lay in different levels for the floors, for different rooms, so that we have that nice offset experience. I'm going to be starting pretty significantly on paneling today, which Although technically there's shapes up there, we'll start to make it feel like it's actually taking shape, start to feel like an actual spaceship, which I'm pretty excited about. Can you hear the shutter sound of the time lapse going? Because I can hear it so loudly, but I don't know. Anyway, if so, I'm sorry. That's just the way things are. I made it almost all the way to beginning work before I remembered to stretch. Before I'm even starting. Today is already a win. I want to be adding varied and interesting offsets to the various rectangles, basically, that make up most of the ship. So it doesn't feel too much like a room. We're familiar with rooms having a lot of justified square right angles, and so I'm going to be adding footwells and raised sections throughout various levels of the ship, interesting angles or perhaps curves that cut into the overall silhouette in the interest of making it feel more like a space and less like a room. So as I'm going, I'm starting to add some annotations here for various things that I want to be able to include so that I can start to build a detailed subframing to accommodate for the various rooms and the shapes I want them to take. I've certainly created some interesting custom framing panels for myself. All right, first proper panel. Let's go. This is awkward. I've got this back curved wall so that it's got sort of this like submarine feeling on the inside. And I've got these pieces of thin plywood which are quite pliable. I think what I'm going to do is create two rails for the top and bottom which match the framing and have tracks carved into them using my table saw. Another beautiful sunny summer day in the Pacific Northwest. Perfect for cutting wood. So here's that view of how the cross section works on these pieces. And I've just got one each for top and bottom. All right, I got my rails mounted. One of these trimmed down to size. And let's see what happens. All right, yeah, that's gonna work. All right, we're back. This is, I think, day 5 of the framing part of the build, although there were a handful of days I took off. I have a cautionary tale. I was cutting some tape. I spent the whole day being really conscious and intentional about my tool use, using power tools, being high up off the ground, and then I shut my brain off to use a box cutter. And I myself in the really good. And so I got that and had to take a couple days of chilling off of my leg. Let this be a cautionary tale. Be careful using all of your tools so that you can avoid buying new pants. Since the last day ended sort of emergency-like, I didn't do my wrap-up, but long story short, these are in place. 2-layer thick thin plywood sheet here to form the back wall. They do still have a lot of give, so I'm going to be going through and reinforcing these so that they stick solidly, because we want that to feel like basically a piece of sheet steel. I'll be running some I-beams or other structural supports along the inside as well, but for the time being, I'm going to get to reinforcing, and then I'll be working on hopefully getting in the rest of the other panels today. I don't know if this is actually contentious, but this series is about building a spaceship in my garage. And I know this probably isn't all that much of a garage in the traditional sense, but in my defense, you know, there is a garage door. There's no such thing as a garage. Labels are imperfect. Reality is perceptual. Here's a pro tip. Table saws are hungry. They want your blood. Don't let them. You familiar with that old children's book? If you give a mouse a cookie? It's kind of like that. If you give a table saw some of your blood, it's gonna want more. Hi there. I hope you're having a good time so far. I was originally going to release this part of the build all in one go, but there's just too much to fit comfortably in a single episode. She seems to be pretty happy with where we're at the moment, so therefore, so am I. In a few weeks I'll release the second half of the framing process before we get into detailing on our first room, the cockpit, which will be one of the most interesting and complicated parts of the entire build. In the meantime, if you're having fun, I hope you'll join me for the rest of the ride. I'll see you soon.